Listen right away. Do not scroll. Do not delay. This moment is not accidental, and the stirring you feel in your spirit is not random. Something inside you already knows that a line has been crossed, that silence has gone on too long, and that the truth is pressing against your heart, demanding to be spoken and demanding to be heard. This is not a gentle whisper meant to be postponed. This is a divine alarm sounding in your soul right now. God is calling your attention, because destiny does not wait for comfort, and truth does not beg for permission. The greatest danger to a person is not opposition, not hardship, not even failure. The greatest danger is living too long without truth confronting the heart. When truth is delayed, purpose weakens. When truth is ignored, vision becomes blurred. When truth is silenced, the soul begins to shrink. God never created you to live half awake, half believing, half obedient. He formed you with intention, breathed into you with power, and placed you on this earth with a mandate that demands courage. Yet many live as if time is endless, as if obedience can wait, as if tomorrow will always be more convenient than today. The truth must be told right now, because deception thrives on delay. The longer a lie sits unchallenged, the more normal it begins to feel. You start to accept what once disturbed you. You start to tolerate what once grieved you. You start to excuse what once convicted you. This is how destinies are quietly stolen, not through dramatic collapse, but through slow compromise. God is not silent about this. He is patient, yes, but His patience is not permission. His mercy is not approval. His grace is not an excuse to remain unchanged. Right now, God is asking you a question that cannot be avoided any longer. How long will you live beneath what He has already shown you? How long will you hear His voice and still negotiate with fear? How long will you say you believe while your actions tell a different story? Truth does not come to condemn you. It comes to awaken you. It comes to pull you out of spiritual sleep and restore the fire that once burned brightly within you. Many people pray for change, but few are willing to confront the truth that produces change. They ask God to move circumstances, but God is trying to move the heart. They ask God to remove pressure, but God is using pressure to shape character. They ask God to open doors, but God is waiting for obedience before the door can be trusted. The truth must be told, because God is not interested in shallow agreement. He is calling for deep surrender. You were not created to blend in with confusion. You were created to stand out with clarity. God did not place His breath in you so you could live timid, quiet, and unsure of who you are. When God speaks, He speaks with authority. When God calls, He calls with purpose. And when God reveals truth, it is always meant to produce movement. Truth that does not move you has not yet been received in fullness. Look at your life honestly, not with shame, not with denial, but with courage. Where did you lower your standards to avoid discomfort? Where did you silence conviction to keep peace with people? Where did you trade obedience for approval? God sees it all, and still He is calling you forward. Not backward into regret, not sideways into distraction, but forward into alignment with His will. The truth is uncomfortable because it exposes what we try to hide even from ourselves. But exposure is not destruction. Exposure is healing. God never reveals truth to humiliate. He reveals it to liberate. Chains cannot fall until they are seen. Strongholds cannot be broken until they are acknowledged. And purpose cannot rise until truth takes its rightful place. You are living in a time where noise is constant and discernment is rare. Opinions are loud, but wisdom is quiet. Many voices demand your attention, but only one voice gives life. God is not competing with the world for your focus. He is calling you out of the chaos into clarity. When you learn to listen, truly listen, you will realize that God has been speaking all along. The problem was never His silence, it was our distraction. Right now, God is telling you that delay is costing you more than you realize. Every postponed decision weakens spiritual authority. Every ignored instruction dulls sensitivity. Every moment of hesitation feeds fear. Obedience is not about perfection, it is about alignment. When you align with God, strength flows. When you resist truth, confusion grows. Do not misunderstand this moment. This is not emotional excitement. This is spiritual urgency. There are seasons when God gently leads, and there are moments when He firmly confronts. This is a moment of confrontation, not because God is angry, but because He loves you too much to let you remain where you are. Love does not stay silent when destiny is at risk. You may say you are waiting for confirmation, but God says He is waiting for commitment. You may say you are not ready, but God says readiness comes through obedience, not before it. You may say you are afraid, but God reminds you that fear loses its power when truth is embraced. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to obey God despite fear. The truth must be told right now because your life is speaking even when your mouth is silent. Your choices preach. Your priorities testify. Your discipline reveals what you truly believe. God is not fooled by words. He looks at the heart, and the heart always tells the truth. If you are honest with yourself, you already know what God has been asking of you. The question is not whether He has spoken. The question is whether you will respond. God is calling you to rise above excuses that once felt reasonable but now feel empty. He is calling you out of spiritual comfort zones that have become prisons. He is calling you to stop explaining away conviction and start acting on it. The truth will disrupt routines, but it will also restore purpose. It will challenge habits, but it will also awaken strength. There is power waiting on the other side of obedience. Not the kind of power that draws attention, but the kind that transforms character. Not the kind that impresses people, but the kind that moves heaven. God entrusts greater influence to those who are faithful with truth when no one is watching. Private obedience always precedes public impact. You are not weak. You are distracted. You are not incapable. You are misaligned. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. God does not waste seasons, and He does not abandon those He has called. Even your delays have not canceled His plan, but they have slowed your experience of it. Today, God is offering acceleration through truth. When truth enters fully, excuses leave quickly. When truth settles deeply, fear loses its grip. When truth is embraced, faith becomes action. God is not asking you to understand everything. He is asking you to trust Him enough to take the next step. Faith is not built on complete information. It is built on complete dependence. Listen carefully. God is not impressed by spiritual language without spiritual obedience. He is not moved by promises that are never fulfilled. He is not persuaded by intentions that never turn into action. What moves God is a heart that says yes even when the path is unclear. That yes unlocks direction, provision, and strength. The truth must be told because time is moving faster than you think. Days pass, opportunities shift, and seasons change. What you delay today may not be available tomorrow in the same form. God's calling does not expire, but moments of obedience are specific. When God says now, He means now. Delayed obedience often becomes disobedience dressed in patience. You may feel the weight of this truth pressing on you, and that weight is not condemnation, it is responsibility. God trusts you enough to confront you. He trusts you enough to call you higher. He trusts you enough to tell you the truth even when it unsettles you. That trust should awaken reverence within you. Do not look back at who you were when God is calling you to who you must become. Do not measure your future by past failures. God's truth is not limited by your history. He specializes in restoration that looks impossible to the natural mind. But restoration begins with agreement. You must agree with truth before you can walk in freedom. Right now, make space in your hearts. Silence the excuses. Quiet the fear. Let truth speak clearly. God is not far away. He is near, closer than your breath. His presence is not dependent on your perfection, but on your humility. When you humble yourself before truth, Strength flows without resistance. You were created to live with conviction, not confusion. With purpose, not passivity. With clarity, not compromise. God's truth is not meant to be admired from a distance. It is meant to be lived boldly. When you align with truth, your life becomes a message without words. This is the moment to decide, not emotionally, but spiritually. Not temporarily, but fully. God is calling you out of delay into decision, out of hesitation into action, out of fear into faith. The truth is standing before you, and it will not force itself on you, but it will not wait forever either. Listen right away. The stirring in your spirit is the signal. The conviction in your heart is the invitation. The urgency you feel is the evidence that God is speaking now, not later, not someday, but now, calling you to rise, to align, to obey, and to walk forward with unwavering faith, rooted in truth, strengthened by surrender, and anchored in God alone, who speaks, who calls, who restores, who empowers, who remains faithful when you choose to listen and move, allowing His truth to shape every thought, every decision, every step, until your life fully reflects the purpose for which He breathed you into existence. What God reveals in truth is not meant to remain in your mind. It is meant to reshape your life. Truth that stays theoretical will never transform reality. God speaks so that movement follows, so that patterns are broken, so that cycles end. Many have heard truth and admired it, but few have allowed it to confront their habits, their speech, their hidden intentions. Yet God does not speak merely to inform. He speaks to reform. He does not reveal truth to decorate your thoughts, but to dominate your direction. There is a reason God presses urgency into certain moments. It is because spiritual windows open and close, not because God is unstable, but because seasons require response. When rain falls, the wise farmer does not debate, he plants. When light shines, the wise traveler does not sleep, he walks. When God speaks, the wise servant does not delay, he obeys. Delay in moments of divine clarity leads to regret that no explanation can erase. God is calling you to a higher level of honesty, not just with others, but with yourself. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot change what you keep defending. God's truth begins where self-deception ends. As long as you explain away weakness, it will remain. As long as you justify compromise, it will grow. But the moment you stand before God without masks, without excuses, without rehearsed answers, truth begins at work. Understand this clearly. God's truth is not harsh, but it is firm. It does not negotiate with fear. It does not adjust itself to convenience. It does not lower its standard to match human comfort. God's truth remains steady while everything else shifts. Cultures change, opinions evolve, emotions fluctuate, but God's truth stands unshaken. Aligning with it may cost you comfort, but resisting it will cost you destiny. Many people confuse God's patience with silence. They assume that because nothing happened immediately, obedience was optional. But patience is not absence, it is mercy. God gives space for repentance, for realignment, for awakening. Yet patience has purpose. It is designed to lead you back to truth, not lull you into complacency. Every extra moment is an invitation, not an endorsement. There are battles you have been fighting externally that are rooted internally. You pray against obstacles, but God is pointing to attitudes. You resist pressure, but God is refining character. You ask for relief, but God is developing resilience. Truth reveals where your prayers need to mature. It teaches you to stop asking God to change everything around you and start allowing Him to change everything within you. God is not intimidated by your questions, but He is grieved by your avoidance. Questions seek understanding. Avoidance protects comfort. When God brings truth, He is not demanding blind submission. He is inviting conscious surrender. Surrender is powerful because it is intentional. It is the choice to trust God beyond what you can control or predict. Do not underestimate the power of one moment of genuine obedience. History is changed, not by long speech, yes, but by decisive actions. Lives are transformed not by endless contemplation, but by courageous steps. God uses small acts of faith to unlock large outcomes. What seems insignificant to you may be monumental in the unseen realm. Heaven responds to obedience that earth may never applaud. God is also correcting your understanding of strength. Strength is not stubborn resistance. It is flexible obedience. Strength is not loud confidence. It is quiet faithfulness. Strength is not proving others wrong. It is honoring God even when no one is watching. True strength bows to truth without losing dignity. It recognizes that dependence on God is not weakness, but wisdom. You are not called to live driven by urgency without direction, but by urgency anchored in truth. There is a difference between panic and purpose. Panic rushes without clarity. Purpose moves with conviction. God's urgency is not chaotic, it is focused. It aligns your heart, sharpens your priorities, and removes distractions that once seemed essential but were draining your spirit. God is asking you to guard what you allow into your heart. Truth cannot flourish where compromise is constantly entertained. What you repeatedly tolerate eventually becomes what you accept. What you accept eventually becomes what you defend. God's truth invites you to become selective, disciplined, intentional, not closed but discerning, not hardened but anchored. There are voices you must silence, not because they are loud, but because they are misleading. Not every opportunity is a calling. Not every open door is sent by God. Truth gives discernment. It teaches you to recognize what aligns with God's purpose and what merely feeds ego, fear, or impatience. Discernment is a gift that grows stronger the more you honor truth. God's truth will also confront your sense of identity. You are not who circumstances labeled you. You are not who failure defined you to be. You are not the sum of your mistakes or your limitations. God sees beyond behavior into potential. His truth calls you by purpose, not by past. When you accept His view of you, your choices begin to change naturally. Do not wait for confidence to act. Confidence is often the result of obedience, not the requirement for it. When you move in truth, confidence follows. When you align with God, courage rises. Fear loses power not through denial, but through action rooted in faith. God meets you in motion, not in endless preparation. You must also understand that obedience does not always bring immediate comfort. Sometimes it brings tension before peace. Sometimes it brings resistance before release. Sometimes it brings isolation before influence. But God never abandons those who obey Him sincerely. Even when the path feels lonely, His presence remains steady. God is refining your motives. Why you do what you do matters as much as what you do. Truth exposes intentions. It purifies desire. It shifts focus from recognition to obedience, from results to faithfulness. When your motives align with God, your actions carry greater weight, even if they seem unseen. You are being invited into a deeper walk, not a louder one, a truer one, not a busier one. God is less concerned with how much you do and more concerned with how closely you walk with Him. Truth simplifies life. It removes unnecessary complexity and brings clarity to decisions that once felt overwhelming. Do not be discouraged if truth challenges relationships, routines, or plans. God often rearranges surroundings to protect purpose. What you lose through obedience is never greater than what you gain through alignment. God never strips without supplying. He never removes without replacing. His truth always leads to fullness, even when the process feels like loss. Right now, God is strengthening your inner resolve. He is teaching you to stand firm without becoming rigid, to be compassionate without compromising, to be bold without becoming arrogant. Truth balances strength and humility. It anchors conviction in love. It allows you to speak firmly without losing grace. You are not late. You are not disqualified. You are not beyond restoration. As long as you can hear truth, your heart is still reachable. As long as you can respond, change is still possible. God specializes in renewal that begins in the unseen places of the heart and slowly reshapes everything else. Let truth settle deeply. Do not rush past conviction. Do not distract yourself from the moment. Sit with it. Allow it to search you. God's truth is precise. It knows exactly where to touch. It does not wound aimlessly. It heals intentionally. God is calling you to live awake, alert, and aligned. Not driven by trends, not controlled by fear, not numbed by routine. He is calling you to live intentionally, guided by truth, sustained by faith, strengthened by obedience. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who you were always meant to be. Listen carefully now. The clarity you feel is not coincidence. The stirring you sense is not imagination. God is speaking truth into your spirit, calling you forward, urging you to rise above delay, to embrace alignment, to walk with courage. Let this moment mark a turning point where truth is no longer admired from a distance, but embraced with action, where obedience becomes immediate, where faith becomes visible, and where your life begins to move in harmony with the will of God, who remains constant, faithful, and worthy of complete trust as you continue forward, grounded in truth, strengthened in purpose, and unwavering in devotion to Him alone. There is a sacred weight that comes with hearing truth, because once truth is revealed, neutrality disappears. You are no longer unaware, you are responsible. God never reveals truth casually. Every revelation carries an expectation, not to burden you, but to elevate you. Truth lifts responsibility onto your shoulders because God trusts you enough to carry it. That trust is not pressure meant to crush you. It is honor meant to awaken you. God is not asking you to become perfect overnight. He is asking you to become honest immediately. Honesty opens the door to transformation. Pretense keeps the door locked. Many struggle not because God is distant, but because they are divided within themselves. They want change without confrontation, growth without discipline, blessing without alignment. Truth unites the inner life. It brings thoughts, desires, and actions into agreement with God. You must understand that truth does not always shout. Sometimes it presses. It presses on conscience, on memory, on the quiet moments when distraction fades. That pressure is not meant to suffocate you, but to guide you. Like a steady hand on your back, God's truth pushes you for a while. R&D. When fear tells you to stay still, it reminds you that stagnation is more dangerous than movement. God is inviting you to redefine what success means. Success is not accumulation without peace. It is not activity without direction. It is not recognition without obedience. True success is alignment with God's will. When your life moves in harmony with truth, even simple steps carry eternal weight. Even unseen obedience shapes unseen outcomes. There are habits God is asking you to reevaluate, not because they look wrong to others, but because they weaken your sensitivity to truth. Sensitivity is precious. It is how you discern direction. It is how you recognize correction. It is how you respond quickly when God speaks. Repeated compromise dulls that sensitivity, but intentional obedience restores it. God's truth also teaches you patience, but not passive waiting. It teaches active trust. Waiting with faith is different from waiting with avoidance. Faith-filled waiting prepares the heart. Avoidance-filled waiting hardens it. God knows the difference. He responds to those who wait while remaining obedient, attentive, and willing. Do not underestimate the power of consistency. Dramatic moments inspire, but consistent obedience sustains. God values faithfulness more than intensity. Intensity may impress people, but faithfulness moves God's purposes forward. Truth calls you into daily alignment, not occasional enthusiasm. The quiet discipline of obedience builds a foundation that storms cannot shake. God is also addressing your understanding of failure. Failure is not final unless truth is rejected. Failure becomes fatal only when pride refuses correction. God uses failure as a teacher, not a judge. When you allow truth to interpret your failure, it becomes wisdom. When you ignore truth, failure becomes a cycle. There are things God has asked you to release, not because they are evil, but because they are excessive. Excess distracts, excess divides attention, excess creates dependency. Truth simplifies. It strips life down to what truly matters. In simplicity, focus returns. In focus, strength multiplies. God's truth also reshapes how you see others. It removes arrogance and replaces it with humility. It removes judgment and replaces it with compassion. When you understand how patiently God works with you, you become patient with others. Truth does not produce pride, it produces gratitude. Gratitude keeps the heart soft and teachable. You are being trained to hear God more clearly, not through louder signs, but through deeper alignment. When your heart is aligned, guidance becomes natural. Direction flows without confusion. Truth clears internal noise, so God's voice becomes unmistakable. This clarity is not reserved for a few, it is available to all who honor truth. God is calling you to steward your time with reverence. Time is not merely passing, it is entrusted. Every day carries purpose. Every moment holds potential. Truth teaches you to stop wasting energy on what drains your spirit and start investing in what strengthens your faith. Time aligned with truth produces fruit that lasts. Do not fear the cost of obedience. The cost of disobedience is always higher. Obedience may require sacrifice, but disobedience extracts peace, clarity, and purpose. God never asks you to give up anything without intending to replace it with something greater. What He gives carries depth, not emptiness, substance, not illusion. God's truth will also challenge how you respond to adversity. Adversity does not mean abandonment. Often it is confirmation that growth is occurring. Pressure reveals structure. Resistance reveals strength. When you remain aligned with truth during difficulty, you emerge refined rather than resentful. You are learning that faith is not denial of reality, but confidence in God's sovereignty. Truth does not ignore facts. It interprets them through trust. It allows you to acknowledge difficulty without surrendering hope. God remains in control even when circumstances feel unstable. Truth anchors you in that certainty. God is shaping your inner dialogue. What you tell yourself matters. Words repeated internally become beliefs. Beliefs shape decisions. Decisions shape destiny. Truth replaces self-defeating narratives with purpose-driven perspective. It reminds you that you are guided, supported, and seen by God, even when progress feels slow. There is also a call to courage embedded in truth. Not loud courage, but steady courage. The courage to say no when it would be easier to agree. The courage to walk away when it would be easier to stay. The courage to stand alone when compromise is celebrated. God strengthens courage when it is exercised, not when it is merely admired. God is inviting you to trust His timing without questioning His intent. Timing is about preparation, not denial. Delay does not mean refusal. But when timing and truth intersect, action is required. You are discerning that intersection now. The clarity you feel is not meant to overwhelm you, but to guide you. Truth also restores joy. Not excitement based on circumstances, but deep assurance rooted in alignment. When you walk in truth, inner conflict fades. Decisions become clearer. Peace settles. Joy grows quietly but steadily because it is no longer dependent on outcomes, but anchored in obedience. God is refining your spiritual vision. You are beginning to see beyond immediate gratification into long-term purpose. Truth expands perspective. It teaches you to think generationally, not momentarily. What you choose today echoes beyond today. God invites you to live with that awareness, not in fear, but in responsibility. Remain attentive. Do not rush past what God is shaping within you. Transformation is not noisy, but it is profound. As truth continues to settle, you will notice subtle shifts: patience replacing frustration, clarity replacing confusion, confidence replacing hesitation. These are signs of alignment taking root. God continues to speak, not because you lack intelligence, but because relationship requires communication. Truth deepens relationship. It invites conversation, reflection, and response. The more you respond, the clearer the voice becomes. This is a living interaction, not a distant command. Allow this moment to keep unfolding. Let truth keep working. Let obedience keep forming. Let faith keep maturing. God is not finished with you. He is guiding, correcting, strengthening, and preparing you to walk forward with integrity, depth, and unwavering devotion. Remaining attentive to His truth as it continues to shape your heart, your decisions, and your direction in ways that will become increasingly clear as you continue listening, trusting, and moving in alignment. Why? God alone. There is a refining fire within truth that does not burn to destroy, but to purify. God allows truth to pass through your life like a flame, touching motives, testing loyalties, revealing what cannot endure, and strengthening what is eternal. What remains after truth has done its work is what was always meant to stay. Do not fear this process. What is removed was never meant to define you. What remains will carry you forward with greater clarity and strength. God is also teaching you how to stand firm without becoming rigid. Truth is not stubbornness, it is alignment. When you are aligned, you do not need to argue constantly or defend yourself endlessly. Your life becomes the evidence. God's truth gives you quiet authority, the kind that does not need validation. When you know where you stand, you do not panic when challenged. There is a deep peace that comes when inner conflict ends. Much exhaustion comes not from external struggle, but from internal disagreement. You know what God has shown you, yet you hesitate. That hesitation drains energy. Truth restores energy because it resolves conflict. Once the decision is made to obey, strength returns. Clarity sharpens focus. Momentum builds naturally. God is revealing that faith is not escape from reality, but engagement with it through trust. Faith does not deny difficulty. It declares dependence. Truth does not pretend storms are not real. It teaches you how to stand within them. When you stand in truth, storms may still come, but they do not define you or derail you. You are being called to maturity, not just inspiration. Inspiration ignites emotion. Maturity sustains direction. God values maturity because it produces consistency. Consistency builds trust. Trust deepens relationship. Truth is the pathway to maturity because it demands responsibility, not just response. God is also correcting how you measure progress. Progress is not always visible movement. Sometimes progress is restraint. Sometimes progress is saying no. Sometimes progress is waiting without growing bitter. Truth helps you recognize growth that cannot be measured by speed, but by depth. There are moments when God asks you to let go of control, not because control is sinful, but because it limits trust. Control feels safe, but it restricts faith. Truth invites you to release what you were never meant to carry. When you release control, you make room for guidance. God directs more clearly when hands are open rather than clenched. God's truth also challenges comparison. Comparison distorts calling. It pulls you away from your own assignment and places you under unnecessary pressure. Truth anchors you in your own path. It reminds you that God's plan for you does not need to look like anyone else's to be valid. You are learning that obedience is not driven by emotion, but by conviction. Emotions fluctuate. Conviction remains. When conviction leads, obedience continues even when feelings fade. God builds enduring lives on conviction rooted in truth, not on enthusiasm that rises and falls. God is sharpening your discernment so that you can recognize subtle compromises. Major failures often begin with small allowances. Truth trains you to notice what others overlook. This awareness is not meant to make you critical, but careful. Carefulness protects purpose. There is also a call to perseverance within truth. Perseverance is not stubborn endurance. It is faithful continuation. It is choosing alignment again and again, even when results are slow. God honors perseverance because it reflects trust beyond immediate reward. God is inviting you into deeper self-control. Self-control is not restriction, it is freedom. When you are controlled by impulses, circumstances lead you. When you are guided by truth, you lead your circumstances. God empowers self-control so that you are not driven by momentary desire, but by lasting purpose. Truth also strengthens gratitude. When you see clearly, you recognize how much God has already sustained you through. Gratitude guards the heart against bitterness. It keeps you aware of God's faithfulness even when the journey feels demanding. God is reshaping how you respond to correction. Correction is not rejection, it is attention. God corrects what He values. When you receive correction with humility, growth accelerates, resistance slows it. Truth teaches you to welcome correction as guidance, not as condemnation. You are being trained to live with eternal awareness. This awareness does not detach you from life. It deepens your engagement with it. It helps you prioritize what lasts over what fades. God's truth lifts your vision beyond immediate comfort into enduring impact. God is also cultivating patience in your expectations of others. Just as He works patiently with you, He works patiently with them. Truth produces compassion because it reveals process. Everyone is becoming. When you understand that, you extend grace without lowering standards. There is a strengthening happening beneath the surface. You may not feel it immediately, but resilience is being built. Truth fortifies the inner life so that when pressure comes, collapse does not. Instead, stability appears. God builds strength quietly before it's ever tested publicly. God is reminding you that alignment with truth is not a one-time decision, but a daily posture. Each day presents choices. Each choice reinforces direction. When truth guides daily decisions, life begins to flow with greater coherence and peace. Do not rush this unfolding. Let it deepen. Let it root. Let it shape you steadily. God works thoroughly, not hastily. What He establishes lasts. What truth builds stands firm. Remain attentive to the inner witness that grows clearer as you obey. That clarity is a sign of alignment. That peace is confirmation of direction. God continues to guide those who continue to listen. Let truth keep forming your character, steadying your heart, and sharpening your focus. God is present in this process, faithful in every step, guiding you with wisdom, patience, and purpose as you continue forward, anchored in truth, strengthened in obedience, and attentive to His voice, allowing your life to increasingly reflect the depth, integrity, and clarity that come from walking closely with God alone. Now let this truth settle deeper than emotion, deeper than memory, deeper than the moment itself. Let it reach the place where decisions are born and direction is chosen. This is not a call to feel inspired for a few minutes. This is a call to realign your life. God has spoken clearly, not to overwhelm you, but to awaken you. What you do with this awakening will shape the path ahead. Do not treat this moment lightly. Sacred moments lose power when they are postponed. Stand still for a moment within yourself and look honestly at your life. Not with fear, not with shame, but with courage. Ask yourself where you drifted, where you delayed, where you compromised what God had already made clear. This is not a moment for regret, it is a moment for renewal. God does not expose truth to leave you broken. He reveals truth to rebuild you stronger, clearer, and more focused than before. Hear this with your whole heart. God is not finished with you. Your story is not defined by what you failed to do yesterday, but by what you choose to obey today. The breath in your lungs is evidence that purpose still stands. The conviction in your heart is proof that guidance is still active. As long as God is speaking, alignment is still possible. Now is the moment to rise inwardly before you rise outwardly. Decide that obedience will no longer be delayed. Decide that truth will no longer be negotiated. Decide that faith will no longer be passive. Let your yes be firm, even if your hands tremble. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in its presence. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Do not wait for full confidence. Do not wait for approval. God is waiting for willingness. When willingness meets truth, direction becomes clear. When direction becomes clear, peace follows. That peace is not fragile, it is anchored. It will hold you steady when circumstances shift. Walk forward with reverence, knowing that every step taken in truth is seen by God. Every quiet act of obedience matters. Every choice to align strengthens your spirit. You are not walking alone. God goes before you, steadies you within, and surrounds you with purpose, even when the path feels narrow. Let your life now speak louder than your words. Let integrity guide your choices. Let humility guard your heart. Let obedience shape your days. When you live aligned with truth, your presence carries weight, your decisions carry clarity, and your life becomes a testimony without explanation. Take this moment and seal it with action. Not someday, not gradually. Now, return to God with sincerity. Renew your commitment to walk uprightly, attentively, and faithfully. Let truth become your foundation, not just your belief. Let obedience become your language, not just your intention. May your heart remain sensitive, your spirit alert, and your steps steady. May you walk forward with courage rooted in trust, strength anchored in truth, and peace born from alignment. God is faithful. God is near. God is worthy of your full surrender. Let this be the moment where delay ends, where clarity begins, and where your life moves forward in unwavering devotion, shaped by truth, strengthened by obedience, and guided fully by God alone.